Hey y'all, welcome to Friday's Kitchen. Welcome back if you have been here before. In today's video, we are making these delicious cinnamon rolls. If you're interested in seeing how I made them, stay tuned. Also, while you're here, please take a moment, look down below, press that red subscribe button, join the family, and come back for some more recipes. Up first, we have our ingredients. Here we have 2 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour, 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, 1 tablespoon of active dry yeast, and 3/4 teaspoon of sea salt. Here we have 1 egg, 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Here we have 1 cup of milk. This will be used for the filling. We have 1.5 cups of brown sugar, 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, and 1.5 tablespoons of ground cinnamon. Here we have 1 stick of unsalted butter softened. It is cut in half, and we will be using it in 2 different areas. You will see that coming up soon. Here we have 2 ounces of chopped pecans. Initially, I was going to put them in the filling, but my daughter requested that I put them on top of the cinnamon rolls instead, so those will come into play a little later. For the icing, we will need 4 ounces of softened cream cheese, a teaspoon of softened butter, 1 cup of powdered sugar, and we will also be needing 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. We are going to start by mixing all of our ingredients together. So first I'm going in with my hand and just kind of mixing the dry ingredients together since I just kind of had everything sitting on top. So we're going to give that a little mix with our hands, and then we're going to go in and begin to add the other ingredients. All right, so first I'm going to add half of the butter. Remember, half of the butter was to be used in the dough, and the other half is to be used when adding the filling to the dough. So now I've added the eggs, the oil, and the vanilla extract. And next I'm going to go in with the milk. I'm not going to add all of it at first. I'm going to add just a little over half. I'm going to mix this in, and if it appears dry, as if it needs some more wet ingredient, then I'll go ahead and I'll add the rest of the milk. I can say now that in retrospect, I didn't need to add all the milk because I ended up adding more flour later on as I was mixing, and it was a little too sticky. But I'll give you more details on that when we get to that point. All right, so now I am going in with the rest of the milk. As I begin to mix, I will notice that it is now too sticky at this point. So now I am going in with my hand to knead the dough a bit. All in all, this will need to be done for about 10-15 minutes total. You're more than welcome to use a stand mixer with the dough hook attachment. I have no idea where my dough hook is, or I would have gone that route. So here I am taking the a little more difficult route by doing it by hand, but it was worth it in the end. So earlier I mentioned my dough being a little on the sticky side because I added the entire cup of milk to the dough. So here I've added about 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour to the dough, and I'm kind of mixing that in to see if it's gonna make it a little more stiff the way that I need it before I set it to the side to start to rise. So after mixing that in, my dough is still a little on the sticky side, so I'm going back in with another 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. And I'm going to go ahead and mix that in until it's well incorporated, and then we will check it out and see if we have the consistency that we need. Okay, so everything looks good. The dough has reached the consistency that I need. It's not super sticky. It has a little firmness to it. So now I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap and set it to the side for an hour so it can begin to rise. All right, so here we are an hour later. We've let the dough rise, so it is increased in size quite a bit. So now I am going to begin to roll the dough out so we can add the filling. So I'm going to start by adding a little flour before placing the dough down. Right, so here I have placed the dough down on top of the flour. I'm going to flip it over to get flour on the other side before I begin to spread. So I had to take my gloves off because they kept getting stuck to the dough. My preference is to wear gloves depending on what I'm making, because just the texture of certain things I don't care for. So in case anyone was wondering, that's typically why I have the gloves on. But my hands are clean, don't worry. So now I'm going in without the gloves and kind of rolling the dough around to get some flour on it. So when I begin to spread, it won't stick to the surface. So yeah, I'm going to spread it out quite a bit with my hands, and then I'm going to go in with a rolling pin to kind of spread it out a little more and smooth everything out. Okay, so here we are. This is the other half of the stick of butter. It has sat out for a while, so it's really, really soft. So we are going to go in now and begin to spread the butter on top of the dough. Again, we're going to be very gentle when we do this to try to avoid any rips and tears. We didn't tear it at all in the middle of the dough. Again, it was just at the very top. And since you roll it over, once you add the filling, you really couldn't tell. So it didn't cause an issue at all. So we're going in now and we're adding some butter on top of the dough. I don't know if I mentioned earlier, but my daughter is helping me out with these cinnamon rolls. So at some point you may see 2 or 3 hands in the frame at the same time. So just in case anyone was wondering. Okay, so from this angle, you can see the top of the dough where it kind of ripped just a little bit, but that was the only area that happened. So again, no issues at all. So now we have spread a layer of butter all on top. We're now going to go in and begin to add our sugar and cinnamon mixture. We're just going to sprinkle it on top. Okay, so now that we have added the cinnamon sugar mixture on top, we're now going through and rolling the dough. So I started from one end and I'm just carefully rolling it up, trying not to tear it at all. And it is a very soft dough, so just take your time, be gentle with it. Now that I've gotten to the end, you can kind of see that I'm going through and I am pinching. So the ends that are left over, I'm kind of pinching it into the rest of the roll to help keep it together. Once I'm ready to slice the roll, I'll just roll it over so that the seam side is down. but you'll see that coming up in just a moment. All right, so now it is time to slice the roll. So here I have a package of dental floss. It was purchased new specifically for this purpose. It is not mint flavor. Make sure if you go this route, you get unflavored and no wax. So it's just the plain floss that I purchased just to cut this. Again, just to cut this. So no, it didn't come out of my bathroom. So basically, I'm going to pull out a piece of the floss. Here you can see that I'm sliding the floss underneath the roll. And so basically what I'm going to do is try to get this as close to the middle as possible, cut this in half, and then I will cut each half in half, and so on and so forth. So here I have it underneath. Tried to do this with the gloves, didn't work, had to take the gloves off. So I'm going to tie it in a knot, and then I'm going to pull both sides, and you can see that it's a nice clean slice. If you try to do it with a knife, it'll work, but sometimes it will tend to flatten the dough a bit. So I find this is the easiest way to maintain the shape of the dough as you're cutting it. So I cut the loaf in half, and now I'm going through and I'm going to slice each of the halves in half. And then I will go through each of those pieces and cut them in half until I've cut it to the size that I want it to be. So I did have some left over. Basically, I'm going to use 12 rolls for the sake of this video, but I did have a few pieces left over. I'm just going to take this and rub it all over the dish that I'm going to use to bake the cinnamon rolls. Here I am going in and I'm placing the cinnamon rolls on the dish. I'm baking a dozen, so I'll have 4 rows of 3. So they don't look very big now, and it doesn't look like much, but now that I have all of the rolls in the dish, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to once again cover it with plastic wrap. And I'm going to sit this to the side for 45 minutes to an hour until they have at least doubled in size. So the next clip that you guys are going to see is what it looks like after sitting in the container for 1 hour. As you can see, they've swollen quite a bit, and now they're all touching and they filled up the dish. So at this point, I'm going to bake them at 375 degrees for about 20 minutes until they reach a nice golden brown color on top. Now that the cinnamon rolls are in the oven, we're going to go ahead and make the icing. Again, this can be made in a mixer. I just assume do it by hand because I'm not making a big batch. As mentioned earlier, we have 4 ounces of softened cream cheese, a teaspoon of softened unsalted butter, 1 cup of powdered sugar, and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. So we are just going to whisk and mix all of this together until it becomes nice and smooth. And this is what we'll be using to top the cinnamon rolls with. Now that the icing is nice and smooth, we can go ahead and set this to the side, and we'll bring it back out once our cinnamon rolls come out of the oven and have had a chance to cool. So here is a close-up of the cinnamon rolls after they have come out of the oven. They bake for 20 minutes in my oven, but as I always say, it may vary depending on your oven. So just kind of keep an eye on them until they look the way you want them to. If you prefer them to be a little darker, you can leave them in the oven a little longer. But we're going to let these sit out and cool for about 30-40 minutes, and then we will come back and add the icing. All right, so now I am going in with the cream cheese icing, and I am just spreading them over, spreading it over the cinnamon rolls. So once I get all the icing on, I'm going to go through and sprinkle the chopped pecans that I showed earlier in the video on top, and then they will be ready to serve. Now we're going to go in with the pecans and sprinkle those on top. I've made these before, adding the cream cheese icing, pecans, as well as a caramel drizzle. Now that I think about it, I should have done that for this video, but maybe another time I will tweak the recipe a bit and then add the caramel. All right, so here we have it, the finished product. These are our cinnamon rolls that have been topped with a cream cheese icing as well as chopped pecans. They're so soft. They smell amazing. They taste really good. So if you are a fan of cinnamon rolls, I would highly recommend giving this recipe a try. I can say it does take a little patience because it's a little, more detailed than just mixing a cake and baking it, but it's definitely well worth the trouble in my opinion. So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to leave them down below in the comment section. I will be sure to reply. If there's anything that you guys would like to see me make, leave that down below in the comment section as well. Again, I thank you guys so very much for watching. While you're here, please take a moment, look down below, press that red subscribe button, join the family, come back for some more recipes, and I will see you guys in the next video.